Hello homies, today we hang out with the lovely Kiwi Helen Bartrom, who is a hypnobirthing practitioner and hypnotherapist in New Zealand who sees clients worldwide through Zoom for her hypnotherapy sessions. So Helen Bartrom is a woman who is very close to my heart because I did my hypnobirthing training with her when I fell pregnant with my first, and that enabled me to have two incredible, beautiful, unmedicated home births. So Helen is very near and dear to my heart. And I asked her to come on the show because sometimes we do need some therapies alongside our homeopathy. Of course, homeopathy, as incredible as it is, it's not the be all and end all. And it's important that we keep an open mind and look at other therapies that we can use conjunctly. And I do believe hypnotherapy is one of them. And I especially loved our conversation today where we explored all the similarities between a homeopathic consultation and that of a hypnotherapy consultation. And if you have any preconceived ideas about hypnotherapy, like I have, I really hope today's episode will open your mind and perhaps consider this as a modality for you to use. If you would like to get in touch with Helen, visit www.helenbartrom.co.nz. That's HELENBARTROM.co.nz, and be sure to check out her beautiful podcast, the Positive Birth New Zealand podcast, where I have also been a guest on in the past. So go and check that out, and thank you so much for listening.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now my mum and your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hello, homies, and a very warm welcome to Homeopathy Hangouts. Today, we get to hang out with a good friend and just beautiful, beautiful person that I have so much love and respect for, the amazing Helen Bartrom in New Zealand. Welcome to the show, Helen.
Oh, thank you, Eugenie. It's such an honor to be here. And yes, I feel exactly the same one. Somebody that I really respect. And oh my goodness, I've been loving your podcast episodes so far.
Thank you. Well, I have loved your podcast episode too. So I was a guest on Helen's podcast called the Positive Birth New Zealand podcast. And if you want to just shower yourself with positive birth stories, that is definitely the podcast to go and listen to. And it was actually really funny because you had another Eugenie on there as well. So how funny out of all the episodes that you've had two Eugenies on your show.
I know. Yeah.
Funny, hey.
It's not that uncommon of a name.
Oh, well, there you go. Before we start, want to share how I met Helen because it is something that was very profound. And so instead of asking, getting you to introduce yourself, I want to share a beautiful story and why you're such a beacon of light in my life. So I have always been terrified of giving birth. And I don't know where that story came from because my mum had 3 beautiful vaginal births. She's always felt very empowered, always had positive birth stories. But somewhere along the line, I got really scared about giving birth. So when I became pregnant, I always said, I want to have all the drugs on the planet. And we actually had the same midwife, the amazing Kate in New Zealand. And New Zealand's got such a great midwifery system where you can have any midwife that you want and it's free of charge. Here in Australia, if you want a private midwife, it's about $5,000. So got in touch with the lovely Kate and she said, this fear of yours is going to stop you from having a beautiful birth. You need to go and see Helen and do hypnobirthing with her. So I came along to your hypnobirthing class and I went from that mum who wanted to have all the drugs on the planet to 2 lessons in saying to my husband, we're having a home birth, to then having 2 amazing, amazing home births. So I will always be grateful to you. Now, this is a homeopathy podcast and people are wondering, why am I bringing a hypnotherapist / hypnobirthing practitioner on the show? And that is because my message is all about empowering mothers. And my empowerment as a mother started when I did a hypnobirthing course with you. So maybe you can now tell your part of the story. How did you find out about homeopathy?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, it turns out homeopathy was really empowering for me too. So there we go. It was amazing. So I think I had known about homeopathy from quite a young age. I remember going through some type of protocol when I was probably about 8, 9 or 10. We lived in an area that was full of strawberry farms and my parents believed that there may be some sprays that we had picked up on and they happened to know. And that was probably because they happened to know a very well-known homeopath at the time. And so we went through a whole protocol of detoxing ourselves from 2,4,5-T, I think it was, or I can't remember, Roundup, probably all of those things. So for me, it was just something that my parents did for all of us kids to get rid of the toxic buildup. And then, to be quite honest, after that, probably never came into my sphere of thinking until I had my kids. And my auntie, who is very much works in the natural health field, also does hypnotherapy and similar stuff to me. When my kids were little, I was asking her for natural therapies, what I could use on earaches, colds, coughs, things like that, because I did know that homeopathy was very safe to be able to use. So that was. Then I started dabbling in just a tiny bit. But to be quite honest, I felt homeopathy a little bit overwhelming at times because there's so many different remedies. And that's where finding a good homeopath is incredible, because as soon as you do, you've got somebody that you can go to, here is my issue, and they will work through it so in depth and to get this remedy for you. And it was probably 2016, 15 or 16, after I had met you, maybe after you'd had both your babies, I can't remember, but after I'd met you and I knew you were doing homeopathy, and we really clicked. We really... I really resonated with the work that you were doing. Yeah. I don't know. You click with some people. Some people you just get and you resonate with, and those people are quite rare sometimes. And then they move to the other side of the world. Yes.
Don't hate me.
So I had an issue, which I'm not going to say too much about, but I had an issue that had been ongoing since 2011. I'd done a lot of different things for this issue, really hadn't got to the bottom of it. It'd been kind of like, I guess there was a lot of layers to this issue. And then I thought, right, well, okay, now it's time to try homeopathy. Homeopathy. That was the first proper consult I'd been to as an adult. I couldn't believe how thorough you were. It was just incredible. You were asking me all these questions, and I'm like, what on earth has this got to do with this issue? But you found me aconite. And aconite turns out to be my constitutional remedy. And it really, really helped with my issue, so much so that I would say that was probably the biggest factor. And I'd gone through 4 or 5 years of doing a whole lot of different things. And it was homeopathy that nailed it for me. I carry aconite in my handbag, and it's not too often that I need to use it. But if I feel myself coming down with a cold, if I feel myself like, I was working in an office a few years ago, everyone was getting the flu or the cold. And I started to feel a bit dodgy. I'm like, I'll pop my aconite. And it always works. It always works. So that's how it's been so empowering for me. Now, touch wood, I haven't had a cold since I've taken aconite. This is 2015. We're talking 8 years now.
Wow. Aconite is an amazing brand, but your case will forever be imprinted on my mind because it's one of those really satisfying cases where you get those instant results and you're just like, oh, this stuff really works. So yeah, no, that was very much imprinted in my mind. It was very, very satisfying case for sure. So talk to us a little bit, Helen, about how did you get intrigued with hypnosis? I mean, you said your auntie does it as well. Is that how you first found out about it?
Yes. So obviously having somebody in the family who kind of does that, it's not strange. It's not weird. It's something that I probably hadn't done a lot of it myself, but she suggested it to me when I was pregnant with my second baby. She'd just found the hypnobirthing program. It was thanks to her that I actually got into hypnobirthing. And so she did some hypnosis with me in my second pregnancy preparing for this birth. And I found it to be like incredible and amazing, which is where then, because she didn't end up doing much, she went in a different field. She went down the fertility route and has just been having amazing success with hypnosis and fertility. And so I trained to teach the hypnobirthing program in 2007. And that was a really great way of starting to work with hypnosis, hypnotherapy, and seeing the results from this mind-body connection. And it's something I'm deeply fascinated with. And I kind of wish that I had maybe left school and gone and done a psychology or a neuroscience kind of degree or something like that, because it's so incredibly fascinating, the brain, the mind, the body. And so it just was a natural extension to want to be able to extend my offerings to the people that I'm working with and to work on deeper levels with them, to then delve into the hypnotherapy qualifications and get more shall we say, more advanced knowledge, more advanced methods, more advanced certification in hypnosis and hypnotherapy.
Incredible. And like I said, the reason I wanted to get you on the show is because I think it's also important for people to know that there are other tools for them as well. And before we started recording, you were sharing a couple of cases, and it's interesting the way that you were speaking. It sounds so similar to what we would do in a homeopathic consultation, but you're also working with, I guess, energy in a way, but coming from a different angle. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about what sort of work you do with your hypnotherapy?
Mm. Yeah, sure. So definitely I think homeopathy and hypnotherapy is so well aligned. And yes, it might be targeting the same thing from a kind of different energetic way. And of course, they work so well together. And I know that you have homeopathy remedies that help for emotions. And this is where hypnotherapy also is brilliant for helping people to work with, shall we say, emotions or feelings or behaviors that are resulting from imprints, shall we say, or programs that we have running. We all have these habits, these behaviors, our personalities, all these things that make us who we are. And a lot of that's created in the first 7 years of our lives when we're in the state of absorbing absolutely everything that's going on in our lives. So young children, it's incredible what they do learn in the first couple of years of their lives. But for the first 7 years of their lives, they're kind of like a wide open page. And therefore they are, shall we say, absorbing the energy or absorbing a whole lot of information and learning a lot from the people that are around them. And that really sets us up for life. So, of course, under the age of 7, we can't really control or influence who we are impacted by. We come into this world, we have our parents, we have the people that we're around, and they also have their stuff and their personalities and their behaviors. And then we have these incidences or things that create our beliefs, our habits, our behaviors, the way that we see the world and respond to the world. And later, as we get older, we find that there's things that crop up that we don't really know how. Why are we responding in this way? Or why have I got anxiety? Why am I nervous? Why am I fearful? Why am I angry all the time? Why all these types of things? Or why am I overeating? Or why can't I stop smoking? Or why am I self-sabotaging? And all these different things. And often it can all boil down to the very root cause of imprints, programs, behaviors, energy, whatever you want to call it, that we have absorbed at a younger time in our lives. And what you could say is that there are memories that we have called implicit memories. Now, I'm going to explain this really simply, but we may have an experience when, let's just say we have an experience. I'll give you one example, experience of a lady who I worked with. She fell off her bike when she was 4 years old. She grazed her knee. Whoop-de-doo. Now, that's not a traumatic experience, but she was quite upset by this. She ran down the driveway to her dad. Her dad's outside the garage. He's chopping wood for the fire. Dad, I grazed my knee. And he just says, got the eggs. They go, oh, we'll chop off your leg, shall we? You know how as adults, we joke about these things. For some reason, her 4-year-old mind could not process that. It went into fight or flight, and it couldn't process that comment. It left that memory stuck in the brain somewhere. And then later on, 30 years down the track, she's getting triggered. And every time she hears a comment that upsets her, she gets this feeling. And you know what she does, because we all do with well, not all of us, but most people will naturally, when we get a feeling that we don't like, we want it to go away. We suppress it. Some people might binge drink or just drink. Some people might binge watch TV. Everyone takes different actions. Some people are going to take drugs. Some people are going to gamble, all these different things. And she ate. And she ate. And every time she had this feeling, every time she had a slight little falling out with a friend or her boss said something to her, and it would trigger this feeling. She ate and ate and ate. And when I saw her, she was particularly obese. And the poor lady, and she couldn't understand why she couldn't stop binge eating. She got in some really, really bad habits. And we're talking over a period of about 10 years of almost self-abuse. Now, we did do a number of things, but one of the key critical parts of the work that I did with her was getting her to find that feeling. Now, first up, she dissociated from her body, so we had to get her to learn to get back into her body, feel the body. But after a few weeks, she noticed that feeling that would trigger the binge eating. We followed that feeling back to the time when she was 4 years old and she fell off her bike.
Wow.
And you'd say, how can that be so traumatic? That was what her brain couldn't process. So we go in and visit that, kind of like childhood, shall we say, inner child work. And we shift that feeling. We release that feeling. Now, I worked with her a few years ago, and she, within the space of a few months, she lost about 30 kilos. Wow. So a lot of weight. I banged into her only just 2 weeks ago, and she's like beaming. She looks amazing. She goes, I'm still losing weight. She is just going from strength to strength. Her confidence has increased massively. She looks amazing, but it all came down to some kind of trauma. Now it's a really interesting example of trauma and how it impacts on us, or implicit memories. And I just end up finding all the time with somebody that comes to me, they want to lose weight, or they want to stop smoking, or they want to stop drinking, or it always comes back to there is something that occurred earlier on in their life that has created a trauma response. And trauma, I use a very wide scope of trauma. And once we can get back to that situation, and that's where hypnosis is wonderful, because it gets the interfering part of our mind out of the way, the conscious part of our mind that goes, that's got nothing to do with it, or the part that thinks too much. We get into that subconscious, we go back to that incident, we release it, and they feel different. They respond differently. So I can't even remember your original question to me, Eugenie. But
no, just that is so cool. And like I said, the way that you're speaking about this is literally my homeopathic mind works in exactly the same way, like trying to get to that trauma. And when you said about trying to bring her into her body, like the homeopathic remedy Lacmaternum, which is made from the breast milk of 9 different mothers, is often what we use to bring people into their body, because the baby has a breast milk and the soul comes into the body. And the butterfly remedy is what I often use for overeating, because you know how a caterpillar gorges himself with food before they go into the chrysalis and then transform. So it's like we're doing the same thing, but just in different ways. And we need all these different therapies, because some people are going to resonate with a different practitioner or a different style of doing, but we're doing the same thing. We're getting down to that root cause. And exactly what we would do in homeopathy is like try to get the person back to that root cause. But for some people, I think that trauma is so deeply suppressed that they, in a consultation, sometimes can't actually access that part of their brain. But in hypnosis, because they're in an altered state, you can actually access that part of the brain which needs to give you that information. So
yep, you're dead right. And that's where if you ask them in a homeopathic consultation, tell me about these things, often those memories are so suppressed, they're never going to remember them. Like this lady was like, I don't even hardly remember, and I work with a lot of people that like come to a situation that is a memory that they've never thought of for years, or a memory that they actually can't even remember, but it makes sense to them. So therefore that's where the hypnotherapy gets them into that state where the subconscious brings up that memory. But yeah, and you're exactly right in terms of some people are going to resonate with other things, but imagine the power of homeopathy and hypnotherapy together.
Yeah. Let's do it, Helen. Let's do it. Oh, it's so cool. You had another case that you were going to share with us as well. You kind of alluded to it before we started recording, and I've just been sitting here itching, waiting to hear what you have to say. Yeah. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is related to infertility and the anxiety around that. And anyone who's going through the infertility journey or shall we say the getting pregnant journey, it's a difficult one. And this lady came to me and, well, interesting. She came to me pregnant with her first baby. And so we did the hypnobirthing course. And then she'd had a lot of drama getting pregnant. She was really stressed, really worried, really nervous getting pregnant. And then she's had her baby, and now she's on another IVF journey now for her second baby. And it was just as we were chatting, she was just telling me how horrible it was going for the tests, the scans, the appointments, all the waiting. And she would turn up at the fertility clinic with knots in her stomach, her heart racing, feeling nauseous. And she always ended up totally upset. And so I said to her, hey, there's something in the background there that's causing stress. And I mean, as a homeopath, you'd probably give her a remedy for that. And so what we did was take her on a journey. take her on a journey. And do you know what? It ended up as a child. It ended up having a vomiting session at somebody else's house. When she was having an overnight sleepover at a friend's house, she got a vomiting bug and her mum wasn't there. And that was what we released. So anyway, I get this email from her and she's just going, I just had my first visit back to the fertility clinic since we had the Zoom session. So I do a lot of work over Zoom. And she goes, I had no nerves, no heart racing, no butterflies, no anxious poo. she found her bowels were always upset. I felt so calm and I still do. And it was such a relief. It was such good news. She was going for surgery at that time. They're really happy for me to have an embryo transfer next week and I'm still feeling calm. Now, I have since caught up with her again because that embryo transfer didn't work out, but she says the change in the way that she feels now going through all these medical procedures is just incredible. And that just comes from her tuning into a feeling, the feeling of anxiety, which started as a child and then seemed to be triggered by these other situations. So you wouldn't really put two and two together. You wouldn't say, oh, well, that your nervousness now is because you had an incident when you were 7 and went to sleepover and your mum wasn't there. And she could hardly, for her, it wasn't a big deal. She didn't think it was a big deal in her conscious mind, but her subconscious mind brought that up. There's always often tears when they go into this scene, when they see the scene. We keep them, if it's a very traumatic situation, they don't have to go into it, but we can still do the healing. There's usually a lot of emotions get cleared there and then they're like, oh, I don't feel like that anymore. And it's just absolutely incredible. And it's been used for all sorts of things, you know. There's a lady that I worked with just the other day and she's pregnant and she's worried about certain things triggering her. And we went back, we followed the feeling. And what happens now is she's got 2 children. She's pregnant with her 3rd. And every time they kick themselves, she gets this terrible, she almost blacks out. She gets so completely nervous, frightened, worried, and just goes into an absolute panic. We followed that feeling back. It went back to an incident with the dog. Now, she wouldn't have put that together, 2 and 2 together. It's just, she comes out of it and she's like, oh, I feel so different. So it's clearing that energy, you can look at it different ways. You could say it's reprocessing in the brain. And it's like homeopathy. It's like you can't really prove exactly how it works, but it works. So who cares?
Exactly. I actually just had a flash of one of those images that you gave us in that hypnobirthing course 12 years ago that I did with you, of the iceberg, the conscious mind above and the subconscious mind below. And the subconscious mind is just so incredible and it registers all these different things and tucks them away there that we don't even know about. And hypnosis is such an amazing tool to access those parts of the brain and heal that you just never would otherwise. It's actually it's so fascinating. I mean, I just think of that immense fear I had of giving birth. I mean, even though I was studying naturopathy / homeopathy at the time, I was like, nah, I want all the drugs on the planet. I don't care. And I was so fearful. And to have that completely removed and go from that to 2 completely drug-free births. And my first birth was 24 hours of surges and still drug-free at home just because I felt so empowered. And that, it was just amazing. The other thing is that you have an incredible voice to listen to. And so it's really easy doing hypnosis with you. And I almost had to fight myself not drifting off into that space because I have that muscle memory of listening to your voice and then going into a state of hypnosis anyway. So I have to kind of keep myself awake. No, you're not in hypnosis right now. You have a beautiful voice for that.
Oh, thank you. There's a lot of people that tell me that they listen to me in their beds every night to go off to sleep, and I cringe thinking about it. Like, how many beds am I in? I don't want to know about that. But it's true. I do send a lot of people to sleep. And I just also, for any of your listeners there that are thinking, hypnosis, that must be really hard to get into. I want to give you a little example of a gentleman that I worked with recently who was so skeptical. Now, he came along because he was kind of got to the point where he knew he needed to do something. So this is an older man. He's got a lot of baggage and he realized it's impacting majorly on his life. Can hypnosis help? So he comes on. He tells me he's super skeptical at the end of our appointment. So it's okay. But I'm getting these vibes that, he's maybe wondering, can I get there? So he was, and this is relating to you talking about my voice. So he's like, within 5 minutes, you can tell he's gotten really relaxed. And then something happens which has never happened to me before in a session. And so he's an older gentleman. I had no idea he had hearing aids, and his hearing aid was connected to the Bluetooth on his phone. Now, I had made a very mental note, because I always ask everyone, switch your phone off. I knew he'd come into the room without his phone, so I didn't even bother saying, make sure your phone's switched off, because there was no phone with him. It was in the car park outside, wasn't it? So here we go. We get this great big ringing noise, and he just jolts out of what you it's a really deep state, the poor guy. He just goes to his car, turns off his phone, comes back, goes, right, let's get back into it, and goes straight back into that state of hypnosis so easily, so quickly. I couldn't believe it. Then comes out of the session and goes, oh my goodness, that was the most amazing experience I have ever had. He goes, I didn't think this would work. I thought it was a load of rubbish. I thought you'd never get me relaxed. But it was kind of proof that it worked when that phone brought him out, and he goes straight back down. So it's not that difficult to get into that state.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I mean, I think anyone who has any issues with hypnosis, like some people who might be very religious, or, you know, like same with homeopathy, like some people actually think that homeopathy somehow is like some Christians I know won't use homeopathy because they think it's voodoo or I don't know what. But do you have the same with hypnosis?
I think there's a little bit of resistance out there. I would like to say that I think a lot of the younger people are coming through very open-minded and with a new sort of sense of how these alternative therapies are really beneficial. So I'd like to say that's what I'm seeing. But yeah, there's absolutely people that are quite skeptical, and that's usually because of what they've seen on mainstream media, what they've seen in the movies. How has movies and mainstream media portrayed hypnosis? I'm not sitting there with a watch or a spiral and getting stare into the spiral. It's a very natural, normal state. And I don't know. Do you want me to explain?
Yes, please do. Because even like with the hypnobirthing, there's that resistance of, oh, what you going to do to me? But when you explained that when we did the course, and then I haven't said this, but actually after I did the hypnobirthing with Helen, I loved it so much that I trained to become a hypnobirthing practitioner myself. I only did it for a couple of years because the homeopathy took over. But obviously in the hypnobirthing training, learning how that's a natural state was really eye-opening. So yes, please tell us about that.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, it's the label or the word might sound weird if you've only heard about it in the movies, because they'll portray it as being really freaky in the movies or whatever. It's a really natural, normal state that we're all experts at it anyway. Every single person listening right now is an expert at going into that state, because we all go off to sleep at night. And so we all pass through that state of light to sleep before we're deeply asleep. You know, those times where you might be lying there and you can hear the wind in the trees or the rain on the roof or your partner snoring. And you hear that, and then the next thing you know, you're kind of waking up because you've gone off to sleep. And those times when you're waking up, have you ever sort of come out of a sleep and you're kind of half in a dream and you're half waking up and you know that the birds are singing or your alarm clock's going off or it's time to wake up? It's that in-between state. So we experience that every single time we go off to sleep and every single time we wake up. But we also experience the same state in different situations, such as driving a car. And most people will have had the experience of driving from A to B, their mind on something completely different, like what am I going to do at work today? Or what have I just done at work today? Or that conversation I had with my mum, or whatever it might be. Your part of your mind's absorbed in somewhere else, but that automatic pilot part of you is driving, and it knows how to drive, and it's doing the driving. And that is virtually the same state, and the same state as when we get absorbed in a screen. And they say Hollywood contains the world's best hypnotists because they absorb us. They get our focused attention. And we've all been at the movies or watched a movie where it's been scary and we've tensed, our bodies tense up, or it's been sad and we start crying, or it's funny and we start laughing. And that's a state of hypnosis, of focused attention and emotions coming up. So they're all the same types of states. So it's really, we're all experts at it. And really, it's a case of often just focusing your attention on relaxing. And I usually teach people to focus their attention on relaxing their body. And as they focus their attention on different parts of their body and just imagining, just pretending, just getting the idea of the body becoming more relaxed, the body does become relaxed. and then the mind becomes relaxed. And when the mind becomes relaxed, we get that part of our mind out of the way that's interfering with, or thinks it's helping, interfering with whatever our problem or our issue or our challenge is. And that's that conscious part of our mind, which is argumentative, and it weighs things up, and it's logical, and it argues back, and it's like, well, I should be doing this and I should be doing that, and everything should be okay, and I'll not eat chocolate anymore, or I can have a great birth. But underlying that, we've got the biggest part of our mind. So if you can imagine an iceberg, and the very tip of the iceberg's touching up out of the water, that represents our conscious mind. And then most of the bulk of the iceberg, in fact, if we relate it to our mind, 95% of our cognitive activity comes from the subconscious mind, the bit that's lying under the water. And that's 95% influencing our habits, our behaviors, the way that we see the world. And so the top bit of the iceberg, that 5%, is often, where we think we're in control, but we're not. And you could liken it to maybe, shall we say, the bouncer at a club. That's the conscious mind, the bouncer. Okay. It only wants to let in certain ideas into the club, and it only wants to let in ideas that are matched the same as what's in the club. Because a bouncer will stand outside a club, and if you're not dressed properly or you don't look right, no, we don't want you in here. We don't want you in here. So imagine if you believe that chocolate's going to save, chocolate's the best thing ever, or that you've got a belief that chocolate makes you feel good and safe, and you've got so many childhood memories of chocolate, shall we say, then it's going to let in the thoughts that agree with what's at the bottom of the iceberg. Chocolate's safe, chocolate's good for me, chocolate makes me feel emotionally supported, or whatever it might be. So it doesn't want to let in a thought that says, well, I don't need chocolate. I don't need it because it's making me put on weight. That's the conscious mind going, yeah, I need to stop chocolate. I need to stop eating. We're just using that as an example. And so what we need to do is get that argumentative part out of the way, and then start to put in another program. I don't need chocolate. I don't like chocolate. It's not good for me. I can walk past the chocolate aisle, and I can live happily, and I can watch other people eating chocolate, and it doesn't really bother me. And this has come into my mind because this is exactly what a lady's emailed me just last week saying, oh my goodness, I'm walking down the supermarket aisle and the chocolate's not calling to me anymore, and I haven't had any for a month. And of course it's Easter. It was Easter. Because I'm saying to her, is it going to be difficult for you at Easter? She's like, I am sweet as. And that was one session of getting her off chocolate, one session. And so all we had to do was get that argumentative part of her mind out of the way, get into that subconscious part of our mind, and change the pattern, the program, the behavior.
That is really cool. Yeah, you have. I have a question for you though. How much do you think rapport has to do with the results that you get with your client? Having good rapport,
rapport.
Do you think?
So just like a homeopath, right?
Yeah. Well, that's why I thought I'd ask you, because
lots.
I had actually completely forgotten about this, but I was about 19, so we're talking like 25 years ago. I used to eat a lot of chocolate, and I went to this hypnotherapist, and I asked her to make me think that chocolate was actually dog poo. Like every time I saw chocolate, that would be dog poo to make me go off chocolate. It didn't do a thing. Like I don't like chocolate really these days anyway. I'm more of a chip fan now, but it was really interesting that session really did nothing, but there was no rapport. So I think that I'm pretty sure you would be able to work with me on all sorts of levels because we have such good rapport. But that's why I wondered whether rapport makes a difference, because that session did nothing for me.
Yeah, I think anyone that's working in the field that you're working in, all homeopaths would know that rapport, because the people that you're working with want to trust and believe you that this is going to work. And how much of it is the placebo effect? Now, we're not going to debate that, because it's, once again, who cares how this works? It works. How much of it? And that's what some people think homeopathy is. It's just placebo. And who cares if it is? Because if it works, who cares? So the people that we're working with, they want to trust us. They want to believe us. And if you align with them, and if you get on with them, and if you've got good rapport, of course, it's going to make a huge difference. And I think I read a study somewhere, and this was related to hypnosis and hypnotherapy in the mind, but it would be very relevant for homeopaths too. And that is, if you have a doctor that comes into the room with a white coat and a badge on, and they believe that the remedy that they're giving to you will work, so they're dressed appropriately. They treat you nicely, you get on with them, and they also have the belief that's going to work. I can't remember the exact percentage of it, but huge success in terms of the results. If you have a doctor sort of come into the room, not dressed properly or no badge on, no white coat, not looking official, and you kind of don't get a good feel about them, and they also don't really believe that here's a pill, take it, then the results of success are rock bottom. So, what is the mental, or shall we say, the mental and emotional factor in healing? And I think we all know that mentally and emotionally how we are when we want to heal has a huge impact on our healing. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And it would be silly to think that it doesn't, because so often our mental emotional is what creates the physical problems in the first place. So you can use that analogy certainly both ways, but it's interesting to hear you say that. That's really cool. Now, Helen, you've got an amazing podcast, an amazing book. You see people around the world through Zoom. So anybody who resonates with you today and enjoys listening to this does not have to miss out. They can actually have a Zoom session with you. Can you tell our listeners about all the places they can get hold of you and how they go about making a booking?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can Google me. Just Google Helen Bartrom, that's Bartrom, and you'll get one of my 2 websites. So I do have 2 websites, which makes things complicated, because I've got one that's highly specialized for anyone who's pregnant and birthing, and I've got birth trauma or trauma from miscarriage or anything like that. So that's really targeted for that group there. So it's all about my hypnobirthing stuff, all about my hypnotherapy for birth related, and also mum related stuff, because I do teach some courses to mums about dealing with emotions, because we're all really pressured and triggered when our kids are young. And so I work with mums like that as well. So you can get me through that, which is www.positivebirths.co.nz. But then I have the general hypnotherapy one that would be for other people who are not got anything out of that birthing stage of life. And that's helenbartrom.co.nz. So you can Google hypnotherapy with Helen and you will find me, and you can get me through there.
Amazing. I just have to say something, conversation Amy and I had recently, who's my clinic manager, and we're kind of neighbors as well out in the rural area that we live in. So often we drive in together. It's a long drive and we get to have really good chats. We had a chat recently in the car about people out there who give advice with only limited life experience. So there's a few very well-known celebrities giving parenting advice, and they've got one child that's a 2-year-old. And I was saying to Amy, I'm not going to go and take advice from this person because they have not been there and done that. And I mean, Amy's got 4 kids. I've only got 2. So I'm like, I said to Amy, I will take advice from somebody like you. So I just want to say to our listeners, Helen recently became a grandmother. So if you're going to take advice from anybody, she has 3 incredible children and now a very, very, very special grandchild. She's been there. She's done that. So if you're going to take...
I've done a lot, actually.
Birthing or parenting advice from anybody, Helen is your lady.
Yeah, I've been through a lot of life situations. And that's why I like doing the work that I do, because I can often relate to people that are going through the tough stuff, because there are quite a lot of interesting adventures.
And just a little side note that I have to share also is that Helen, every Christmas under this beautiful New Zealand Christmas tree, the Pūtakawa tree, has taken a photo of her children every single year for how many years now?
We must be up to 17.
Like literally every year at Christmas, I look forward to seeing that photo on Facebook.
It's so funny cute. How that resonates with a lot of people. And so many people say, I must do that. And no one else has. And I'm like, steal my idea totally. And guess what? This year we get an extra little person.
I was going to ask if you're going to have your grandchild. Yeah. Oh,
totally.
It is.
Of course we will. Cool. We'll keep it going. Because my kids now ask me, are we still going to do it? And in the early days, it was a bit of a mission. It's like, oh my goodness, get all the kids sitting in a straight row or sitting still.
Yeah. One of these days, you're not going to all fit on that picnic table anymore that you sit on, because there's going to be lots of grandbabies everywhere, hopefully.
Let's hope there's still a picnic table. That area of the beach was actually quite badly destroyed in our recent storms. But no, the picnic table's still there. But I'm just thinking in 10 years' time, it'll still be there.
Oh, Helen, it was so lovely to chat with you today. I was really looking forward to our chat today to get an opportunity to connect with you again. I really hope people reach out to you and also listen to your podcast. I think you mentioned your website and stuff, but you didn't mention, where to purchase your book from as well.
Yeah, okay. And purchase my book. So especially for anyone in New Zealand who's listening, it is the Kiwi Hypnobirthing Guide, really comprehensive guide for anyone who's pregnant. So you can get that only off my website, www.positivebirths.co.nz. The podcast also, obviously, this is resonating with people around the world because I've had American mums, Canadian mums, English mums listening to it. It's just full of positive birth stories. So if you want some inspiration, that's where you want to go to for every type of birth story. But people talk about what made it a positive experience for them. So that's on Spotify at the moment, just on Spotify, the Positive Births New Zealand podcast.
I love that because you do have C-section births and you do have natural births. You've got every type of birth possible on there, but positive stories about it, which is so important. Yeah. Thank you so much, Helen.
It was a huge range.
It was really lovely to hang out with you, chat with you soon.
Thank you so much. An absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you.